All right, Alexander, let's talk about what's going on with the election, the news, the latest news as to what's going on. We have right now, as we're speaking, we actually have Rudy Giuliani was actually just speaking to the Pennsylvania Senate, the Senate hearing, the legislator there, and I saw a little bit of his open, and it was a good open. Giuliani was solid, and we also have news coming out of Arizona. We have news coming out of Wisconsin, Michigan. We have had states that have certified as well. They have certified, but it doesn't mean that it's over just because they certify. There's a lot of legal battles taking place, mostly in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin. What do you think of what's going on right now?
The important thing to say is that these legal battles are still going on. I know there's been a lot of attempts to say that this has all been sorted, and the fact that Trump has basically agreed to transition discussions and all this somehow means that he's conceded. He has not conceded. I don't think Donald Trump is ever going to concede this election. I think he's going to go on fighting all the way up to the moment when the Electoral College actually votes, which is on the 14th of December. I think if the Electoral College decides at that point to vote for Joe Biden, which it may do, I mean, at the moment, the figures point that way, I still think he will come away from that and say, this was not an honest election. I actually won. I was cheated. And he will go on with these cases, no longer as perhaps as president, but he will go on with these cases and he will hammer away and try to prove it. Now, at that point, he might not succeed in overturning the election outcome, if that is what it is, but he would obviously give himself huge amounts of ammunition going forward in a future election in 2024, or whichever candidate he supports going forward in that election in 2024. And of course, if he is able through these court cases to establish the existence of fraud, then he sets the ground for impeachment. Now, I want to make this clear. I've said all of those things. I don't mean to suggest that Trump has given up yet, expecting that he's going to be able to change things before the Electoral College meets. But always this case, or rather this group of cases, has suffered from the immense problem of lack of time. You need the evidence in a big way to show that things went wrong. And that isn't always easy to assemble in the very limited time available. So I think his strategy is he's going to go hammering on, see if he can stop and reverse this, before the Electoral College meets on the 14th of December. And if he can't, he won't concede. He will never say that he lost the election fairly. He will go on fighting thereafter, because that's what Donald Trump does. He is often pushed into situations by the Republican Party establishment, by the establishment in Washington, trying to get him to play by their rules. And he has never played by their rules. He will play by the rules which he thinks apply. He will never say, I believe this election was fair, when he believes that it was not. He will never say that which he does not believe to be true.
Yeah, look, we have a lot of movement, and I think for all the negative movement that the mainstream media presents, for example, the certification of election results from the legislatures of various states, you have titles like this from the Washington Examiner: huge court win lets Trump present ballot evidence, could overturn Nevada results. That is a big win. From the Citizen Free Press, the judge blocks certification of Pennsylvania election results, and we are having the hearing as well. That's also a win. We also have, like I said, a lot of stuff going on in Georgia, and you still have Sidney Powell, who has told Fox News, she told Lou Dobbs, that her Georgia lawsuit will be filed, she says, today, maybe tomorrow. So, I mean, that's coming as well. Linwood is also hammering away at Georgia. I mean, they're hammering away at Georgia really hard now. And there has a lot of interesting things have surfaced. We'll leave it there. Out of Georgia, a lot of interesting things have surfaced out of Georgia as to how the votes were tallied up, especially with regards to a lot of the percentages of votes that usually get discarded, which is usually a 3% range. And we're finding out that in Georgia and in other battleground states, that number's been at like 0.03%. I mean, it's been extremely low, the ballots that have been discarded because of various indiscrepancies or various things that were filled out wrong. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's playing out right now. Yes, tough for the Trump team, but also some very positive developments.
Well, can I just say this point about Georgia and the audit and the fact that, a lot of ballots, there's far fewer ballots which have been discarded as what I would call spoilt ballots. That's the expression we use in Britain, ballots which are defective in some way, that there's very few of them. The reason that's happened, I am sure, is because of this enormous amount of so-called ballot curing. In other words, people going to help, one has to be very careful about, using words like help electors, voters, if they are really voters, to correct defective ballots. Now, I come back to what I've said. In Britain, and I've checked the rules about this in Britain, in cases of postal ballots, we don't have mail-in ballots in Britain, we have postal ballots. If you have, in cases of postal ballots, the only thing that can happen is that after the election, and I stress after the election, if the ballot is wrong, defective in some way, they can contact you. They're required, the electoral authorities are required to contact you to tell you why your ballot was not included, what was wrong with it. They don't invite you to correct it. And the other thing they can do, and this is before the election, they can contact you to ask you to provide a more up-to-date signature. Now, the reason they would do that is because they might suspect that the signature on your ballot is fraudulent. So it's a check against fraud. We do not have the situation in Britain where you have teams of people, teams of officials fanning out across the country, looking for mail-in ballots which, are defective in some way and correcting them before the election is actually over and before the votes are fully counted in order to include those ballots in the vote. I find that an extraordinary practice, actually. And in Pennsylvania, it's not even, and Pennsylvania is just, I mentioned Pennsylvania because it's just the state I know about. The electoral law there doesn't say it can be done. Now, the problem that the Trump team have had is everybody knows that ballot curing has happened on a massive scale. Everybody, knows or suspects that this has tended to favor Joe Biden, but they haven't yet been able to put together a case, an all-encompassing case, that says ballot curing is illegal. And maybe it is not under US law. I don't know. But also, they haven't found the time to prove that this has been done in a discriminatory way. In other words, it's been done in order to help Democrats vote for Biden and not help Republicans vote for Trump. Let me give you an example, which is this court case that was rejected 2 days ago in Pennsylvania. The problem with that case was that they had only 2 examples of Republican voters who'd sent in mail-in ballots which were rejected. Just 2. And the judge said, understandably enough, I can't turn down the votes of 7 million people on the strength of problems with just 2 ballots. You need thousands of them. And that's always been the problem. It's finding those thousands of ballots, defective ballots, ballots that have been changed, ballots which have been changed to favor Biden, against Trump in the time available. Now, the time available is a bit longer than most people say, because I think you can go on doing this up to the 14th of December, when the Electoral College not just meets, but actually elects the president. If you can prove that this has happened on a mass scale, if you can provide the numbers in places like Pennsylvania, in places like Georgia, in places like Nevada, in places like Arizona, if you can do that before that vote has happened in the Electoral College on the 14th of December, then I think you are within a measurable distance of changing the outcome, of showing that the election was a tarnished election, and opening it up for the Electoral College to vote in a different way. But even if you can't do that by the 14th of December, and perhaps you can, but even if you can't do that by the 14th of December, what Donald Trump is signaling is he will go on trying to prove it afterwards. And if it has happened in a massive scale, so he should, because if he doesn't, and a tarnished election is allowed to stand, in other words, if we don't know that that election was tarnished, there is nothing to prevent this happening again. And in addition, if it can be established that Joe Biden was elected improperly, all sorts of possibilities, as I said, start to become possible. You might look at impeachment proceedings after 2022. You might look at, possible electoral outcomes in 2024, or in the midterm elections in 2022. You begin to change the entire political dynamic in the United States. And also, as I said, you safeguard the United States from this kind of electoral abuse happening again. So I don't mean to suggest that Donald Trump has given up on changing the Electoral College decision on the 14th of December 2020. But even if he can't, he's never going to concede. He's going to go on fighting thereafter. And the fact that we are now starting to see decisions go in his favor. There's even been a decision in Pennsylvania where a judge has issued a restraining order on certifying votes. That the fact that things are starting to move in his favor in court decisions is perhaps an indication that the evidence, that grassroots evidence, is starting to emerge. Now, turning briefly to the question of Sidney Powell, well, of course, Sidney Powell is threatening what you might call the legal equivalent of an atomic bomb. She says that she is going to be able to prove that there was mass alteration of votes through corrupt algorithms on voting machines. We haven't seen her evidence yet. If she can prove that, then we will see this big nuclear explosion. But I'm going to hold back until I've seen what that evidence is and what that court case is. So, we'll have to see what she comes up with this week. But I've spoken mainly about the case relating to mail-in ballots and curing ballots. And that, I think, is going to go on up to 14th December 2020, when the Electoral College votes. And as I said, if it's not finished then, and the Electoral College still votes for Joe Biden, I predict it will continue after.
Yeah, and you also have statements like this coming from John Solomon, who was also on Lou Dobbs. John Solomon, I mean, he did great work for the Russiagate and the Ukrainegate hoax. I mean, just great work. And he says this on Lou Dobbs' eyewitness testimony. John Solomon reports, says he's seen concrete evidence revealing electoral fraud, ballot manipulation, and many other instances of cheating that Donald Trump legal team will present in court. And I stress the word, it says John Solomon reports that he's seen concrete evidence. So, once again, John Solomon is, I mean, this is a serious guy, a serious reporter. He has Just the News, and he broke a lot of stuff for Ukraine Gate and Russia Gate, a lot of stuff.
Indeed, and was heavily criticized for doing so and turned out to be right. I mean, that's the other extraordinary thing. I mean, all the information we've had has tended to corroborate what has entirely corroborated what he said. But, independently of that, I've always said that I've always felt that introducing mail-in ballots on this simply titanic scale in this election was, an extraordinary thing to do. It created all kinds of problems. By definition, mail-in ballots and postal ballots can never be secure in the way that in-person ballots are. You can never have the kind of situation that arises in a ballot station, in a polling station, where the elector comes, the elector signs the ballot paper or does whatever is done, ticks the place on the ballot paper. The whole thing is controlled there. There are election observers monitoring the whole process, checking to see that this elector really is a person who is registered and entitled to vote. You can't do this in anything like the same way with these mail-in ballots, because you don't have that degree of supervision and control over the entire process of voting. And when you add this practice of curing ballots on top of that, you are creating a mess. And that's the mess that this court case that Giuliani and the Trump team are currently pursuing.
All right, we'll keep updating this because it's moving and changing very, very quickly. Alexander Merkers, thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below. Also, make sure to like this video and share this video. Look for us on BitChute, Odyssey, and of course, Rumble as well. We are now on Rumble and PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar, and Bitcoin. You'll find those links down below where you can help out this channel. Of course, the Duran shop, pick up some merch. We got all kinds of new mugs, specially designed mugs as well. There's one there. And I also got another new one, which is with South Africa. Got that one today as well.
There's lots of countries and these wonderful new mugs, which are designed for us by a very well-known Greek artist and designer, Dimitris Economou, and they're special for the Duran, so they're special for our viewers. So you can come to our shop, you can buy these things unique to yourself, and they're designed, as I said, by an artist. They're actually, if you like, artworks as well as mere mugs and shirts. Not that all of our mugs and shirts aren't hugely artistic in themselves, but these would be actual works by a well-known artist. So you can get these wonderful things in our shop. You can get, all our wonderful merchandise, our hats, our shirts, our mugs. This one, by the way, with Australia. You'll see I'm also wearing a shirt with an Australian flag. And please also follow us on our various other platforms, on Rumble, on BitChute, on Odyssey, on Library, as Alex said. Come and support us on Patreon and on Subscribestar. And please also remember to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. So support us as you can so that we can go on providing you with all this wonderful analysis and commentary that we do on our channel.
All right, Alexander Merkers, thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.